Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks again for joining us here on KAKM for Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting this evening's show. Up first on the satellite imagery, you can see big breakout here over the Gulf of Alaska with that low pressure area moving in. Still a spin down here over Dixon Entrance earlier today. That kept some showers going down in that area throughout the morning hours, tapering off this afternoon, then some breaks here through the central interior and some more clouds dropping in from the northeast over the northern areas. But it started out a pretty nice day over south central Alaska, a lot of sunshine in across the Copper River Basin, up across the northeast interior, and then low pressure tracking eastward there across the Bering Sea in toward the southwest coast, very close to Nunivak Island. And then a lot of moisture streaming up in the southwest flow there in the southeastern quadrant of that system. It's bringing rain across Bristol Bay, the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta. That's shifting eastward to the Alaska Range during the afternoon hours. Scattered thunderstorms and showers building along the Alaska Range during the afternoon. Then you can see it started out mostly sunny, and then the clouds and showers moved into the Cook Inlet area. But still pretty nice up to the north, although some scattered thunderstorms were developing here over the Tanana Valley, eastern interior areas along the Alaska and the western Alaska Range, as well as over the Talkeetnas this afternoon. Another batch here extending across the southern Koyukuk up into the Kobuk Valley. Otherwise, just areas of rain here and drizzle and some areas of fog as well here in advance of this front across the southwest interior. Clouds on the increase across Kodiak Island with areas of rain extending back along the Alaska Peninsula there with some showers in over the southeast Bering Sea. A lot of clouds out to the central Aleutians and a few breaks, but also some areas of fog over the western areas. And the Gulf of Alaska today, low clouds up along the coastline there throughout the through much of the day today and into Prince William Sound, but still mostly sunny day over the Copper River Basin. But as soon as this front shifted to the south a little bit there, broke out with some sunshine, temperatures approached 70 degrees along the Alaska Peninsula at Sand Point. For tonight, looks like steady rain in across south central Alaska. Starting this evening, especially after midnight, kind of an increase in the showers this evening, then turning to steady rain. That'll continue for the remainder of the night, and that'll eventually spread into Prince William Sound and along the North Gulf Coast as far east as about Cordova. Otherwise, up in the interior, eastern interior, and the Tanana Valley, scattered thunderstorms and showers kind of diminishing here during the evening hours. Dry back to the north and northwest with some clearing periods, and trough up there off the eastern Arctic coast. That'll keep a chance of showers in over the eastern coast there and down over the North Slope areas as well. But for the most part, the Brooks Range will remain dry in much of the North Slope. Look for an increase in the low clouds again during the overnight hours up there after they burned off a little bit today. Still got a chance of showers over the northern Panhandle, but should be dry with just variable clouds over the central and southern areas there. Again, showers here following the front in behind with northwest winds there. Probably the best chance of showers will be on the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula, right up into Bristol Bay. Also kind of showery here across the Yukon, especially the Kuskokwim Delta, but drying out, drier northwest wind coming in behind that. So look for some clearing during the day tomorrow. Otherwise, This low pressure area, we've got rain changing to showers here. Rain in the morning changes to showers in the afternoon across south central Alaska, with showers back across the Alaska Range into the Kuskokwim Valley, scattering out here down across Bristol Bay, but kind of lingering along the Alaska Peninsula. Still a chance of some showers, mainly on the west and southwest side of Kodiak Island, but generally westerly wind flow now, so you'll be in a decreasing shower, decreasing cloud sort of pattern there in that type of a wind flow, with low pressure over the Susitna Valley, that front extending along the North Gulf Coast. So periods of rain, Prince William Sound over to Cordova, Yakutat, Valdez, even some moisture up into the Copper River Basin, and rain spreading in over the northern southeast coast, but remaining dry over the central and southern coastal areas there. Looks like rain about as far south as Port Alexander out along the coastline into Juneau, up to the north there, Haines, and over toward Elfin Cove. Otherwise, dry conditions again here up over the north and northwest. Looking good for the Brooks Range, good VFR flying through the passes there. Again, low cloud deck in over the north slope in the morning hours. That'll tend to burn back in the afternoon. And easterly winds up there on the western Arctic coast, still kicking up to 15 to 20, gusts 25 miles an hour at Point Lay there. Lighter winds and more chances of seeing some fog there on the eastern Arctic coast. Big area of high pressure out here over the Aleutians for light wind conditions out there, with quite an extensive area of low clouds and fog there from Shimia all the way up to the Pribilofs northward to St. Lawrence Island. And it looks like this batch of moisture will drop southeastward and bring some shower threats as it slides southeastward. Will bring a chance of showers on Monday and across the Unalaska Nikolsky area, the western Alaska Range, or the western Alaska Peninsula, with northwest winds. It should clear out again on the Pacific side of the peninsula, so it should be a mostly sunny day for Chignik and Sand Point, but clouds there on the Bering Sea side, so Pilot Point, Port Hayden, Nelson Lagoon, Cold Bay. Look for a cloudy day with some areas of fog there, possible IFR along the peninsula. Areas of IFR up the coast here with low clouds and fog, but drier conditions and partly to mostly sunny skies in store from northern Bristol Bay northward to the Seward Peninsula all the way up into the Noatak Valley areas, and still a chance of showers there over the eastern Brooks Range, but most of the shower activity will be up off the Arctic coast with light winds, low clouds and fog on the east side. Still northeast wind there, 10 to 20 miles per hour on the western Arctic coast. Otherwise, this front pushes inland, continues to rain tomorrow night over the northern panhandle, and that kind of drags southward there. So it looks like periods of rain over the southern southeast coast on Monday. More of a showery condition back to the north. Showers extending westward there along the North Gulf Coast and over the Gulf of Alaska. And still a chance of showers here over south central Alaska, mainly over the Kenai and Chugach Mountain areas there, and scattered thunderstorms developing over the western Alaska Range up into the central, eastern interior, upper Tanana Valley area, but drying out back to the west. And for temperatures today down along the southeast coast, kind of a range there from 63 at Juneau to 68 at Port Alexander, otherwise 63 at Klawock and 64 over at Annette. Up to 61 today at Yakutat, but Cordova only managed 57. 61 in Valdez, and lower 60s this afternoon, which were down from the upper 60s around midday here over northern Cook Inlet. Just 58 at Homer. Kodiak up to 63, 72 in Talkeetna, and a nice 77 degrees at Gulkana this afternoon, 75 at Northway. Delta just 64, but Fairbanks did reach 71, and 74 at Tanana. Lower 70s here, the Koyukuk and upper Yukon Valley areas. Up along the Arctic coast, temperatures lower 40s there in the central and eastern coast, upper 40s to upper 50s here on the west side. Sunshine, 58 degrees in those gusty east winds at Point Lay. And also mid-50s here along the northwest coast, right down into Kotzebue Sound. Seward Peninsula, lower to mid-50s, 53 at Nome. 63, though, at McGrath, but into the clouds and rain, mid-50s here over the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta and the lower Yukon River Valley areas, with 55 at Amonic and 52 at Macoriac. 53 this afternoon at St. Paul, 52 at St. George, some gusty west winds going on there, 54 at Unalaska. There's that 68 at Sand Point where the sun broke out and downsloping westerly winds there, but 55 at Chignik and 57 at False Pass, otherwise 54 at Unalaska, lower 50s out to the west. Lows for tonight will be in the upper 40s over the Aleutians and the Bering Sea. A little cooler to the north there. Arctic coast and eastern and central Arctic coast, lower to mid 30s, as well as a good portion of the north slope, milder back to the west, and looks like lower to mid 50s in through the central and eastern interior tomorrow, the Tanana Valley area, lower to mid 50s here over south central Alaska with the cloud cover, and rain should keep it above the 50-degree mark there, and lower 50s for all of the southeast coast. And looking at the highs forecast for tomorrow, upper 60s to lower 70s here through the central interior from east the border all the way back to the Seward Peninsula there and up into the Noatak Valley. Temperatures approaching 70 degrees tomorrow afternoon. Otherwise lower 60s here over south central Alaska, again with rain changing to showers, and upper 50s to lower 60s over the southeast coast. Warmest down to the south, and lower to mid 50s here for the Alaska Peninsula, lower 50s out over the Aleutians and the Bering Sea. Macoriac forecast high 53 and Gamble 49. Looking at flying weather, area of IFR all along the North Gulf Coast here, kind of spreading into the Panhandle, increasing during the late morning and afternoon hours. Central and southern southeast coast forecast to be VFR, but conditions will be coming down here over the northern areas throughout the day, with IFR extending back into Prince William Sound and into Passage Canal on the east side of the Kenai Peninsula, becoming VFR over Cook Inlet, with marginal VFR for the western Alaska Range right down into northeast Bristol Bay. And again, IFR along the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula, becoming VFR on the Pacific side and over toward Kodiak Island. Areas IFR along the eastern and central Arctic coast, VFR to the west, and another batch IFR here through the Bering Strait down across St. Lawrence Island, kind of expanding as it drops southward into the Bering Sea, with marginal VFR at best over the Aleutians. And for Anaktuvuk, sunshine means the passes will be open, both Anaktuvuk and Adigan. VFR tomorrow, north and south entrances. Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR. Rainy looking marginal as well. Windy though will be VFR, as will be Isabel and Mentasta, with Tanita marginal VFR becoming VFR. And for Portage, IFR could be some improvement here on the eastern entrance, becoming marginal VFR in toward the afternoon, or actually west and east entrance. So starting out IFR and then gradually becoming marginal VFR during the afternoon hours for Portage. Chilkoot and White, look for it to go the other direction, marginal VFR becoming IFR into the afternoon. And for the freezing levels, about 8,000 feet here through much of the interior, but a cold pocket of 6,000 feet here, kind of over the Kilbrook and Auckland mountain areas, and then 6,000 feet up over the eastern Arctic coast. Otherwise, about 8,000 feet here across the Panhandle, and more of a gradient here south of the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island. Then it warms up quite a bit. You see 14,000 feet there approaching the western Aleutians. And icing threats here, the best chance will be in the shaded area of light to isolated moderate rime types of icing here all along the North Gulf Coast, south central Alaska, up into the Copper River Basin, the Susitna Valley areas, but that'll be decreasing from southwest to northeast throughout the day, and then on the increase here over the northern southeast coast there down to about Port Alexander, while the southern areas stay icing free back here to the west and to the north. And the upper level low that's now off the southwest coast tracks eastward to about this position right over Cook Inlet tomorrow. So the rain in advance of that will change over to showers in the afternoon as that low center passes by and the jet stream shifts to the south. Southwesterly flow will push that rain up to the North Gulf Coast and eventually in across the northern Panhandle, and then through the central and into the southern Panhandle tomorrow night and Monday. Drier northwesterly flow here across the Bering Sea, edging its way eastward. 9,000 feet northwest winds, 20 to 25 knots over the southeast Bering Sea, Pribilofs, eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula area. Lighter northwest winds over the southwest interior. Kind of a light westerly breeze through the central interior, more lighter and variable here over southern Alaska, but southeast up to 20 knots there for the eastern North Gulf Coast. Southeasterlies 15 to 20 knots for the Panhandle. And high pressure over the western Bering Sea. That's going to make for light wind conditions there over the Aleutians, but northwesterlies here from the southeast Bering Sea across the Alaska Peninsula, 20 to 25 knots, lighter up across Bristol Bay. Same pattern here we saw at 9,000 feet up over the interior, and those northeast winds continue at about 20 knots for the western Arctic coast, and light southeast winds ahead of that front here across the southeast coast, but kicking up to 25 knots there around Yakutat. And taking a look at turbulence, look for some light to isolated moderate turbulence here for the central coast of the Panhandle up across Elfin Cove to about Yakutat. Turbulence free here across south central Alaska and Prince William Sound, as well as much of the interior. Still could be some light isolated chop there for small aircraft on the western Arctic coast. And then a little bit better chance of seeing some turbulence here for Kodiak Island, the Aleutian Range, Alaska Peninsula, and eastern Aleutians with that northwest wind flow coming behind the frontal system with the low tracking eastward. So that'll create some mechanical turbulence in that area. And after the break, I'll be back to look at the marine forecasts. Welcome to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with the National Weather Service, and joining us today, two more people to talk about the augmented reality sandbox. It's Alana Valaji. She's a University of Alaska Fairbanks mechanical engineering student, helped design and work on the details to make this new type of sandbox there. Thanks for joining us, Alana. Thanks. And Courtney Breest, she's the outreach coordinator for AKwx, which is the experimental program to stimulate competitive research. It's a program funded nationally by the National Science Foundation, right?
Yes.
Okay. Alana, tell us about how you changed and adapted this version of the augmented reality sandbox. It's a really cool tool.
So Gina approached us with 3 goals for this new version of the sandbox. They wanted it to be compact in a light system that could travel around the state. They wanted it to be child-oriented, so we designed the sandbox to have 3 different levels.
Okay.
It's pretty cool. You can have younger children, you can have high school kids. I guess I should say high school teenagers.
Sure.
And then we also designed it to be more marketable, user-friendly, so that this could be seen eventually in classrooms all over the place, all over the state.
Okay. And you had a big hand in this, but this was a team approach, right?
Definitely. It was a really good experience for myself, for George Stevens, who we'll see later.
One of our hand models today. Yeah.
For 2 other members who aren't here today, Cody Klingman and Austin Hunt. And it was just a really good learning experience all around.
Very good. And this is something that is part of your learning experience as well, so you get to check a box in your education.
Yeah,
right?
it's a requirement for seniors of mechanical engineering at University of Alaska Fairbanks.
Very good. Very good. Well, it is a wonderfully inquisitive tool, fun to play with, and I hope to get my hands in the sand here in just a little bit. But it's also part of a bigger program, something that we were talking about a moment ago, AKwx, and that's what Courtney is here to tell us more about. What is AKwx and why do you need a sandbox?
Well, AKwx, as you mentioned, is a national program. We're funded nationally, but we're actually located statewide. We're at UAF, we're at UAA, we're in Southeast at UAS, and she mentioned, you know, taking the sandbox as an educational tool, and that's where I'm an outreach coordinator for the South Central test case.
Okay.
Our focus is on the Kenai watershed, and we are really interested in using these tools like the sandbox to interact with the students down there and get them interested in STEM and also communicate the research findings that we've been having throughout the state.
Okay. And one of those, as George and Eric are kind of changing the contours for us there from UAF to maybe something that resembles a little bit of something more of the Kenai watershed, which is one of your focuses for the study, right? And specifically looking at some of the changes there and how that impacts people and also the salmon.
Yes, it is all of our research is social and environmental.
Okay.
So we have social scientists working hand in hand with our environmental scientists. One of the things we're studying is Upper Russian Lake, and we have a researcher taking sediment cores from that lake. So one of the things we're going to use the sandbox to communicate is how the landscape changed over a long period of time, thousands of years, going from glacier, covered by glacier ice, to being filled with water. And then
that's what they're doing right now.
Exactly. So
live.
So they're moving
cool.
the water around. And then I think they've got some props over there, because we're also going to go a little bit more in depth and explain how the salmon got there.
Okay.
So using
there's
these,
the salmon.
Exactly. Oh, I think there's a few more.
Yeah, we like more salmon in Alaska. More salmon.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really taking the findings from our research grant and just trying to connect with the community and translate it in a really hands-on and exciting way, so people can you know, interact with us as much as possible.
Well, sure, that makes the learning and the science real and quite literally in your face rather than just some boring black and white paper that you have to read about. This is something that people can understand better because it's visual and they're touching and feeling and seeing these changes, right?
Yeah, and get them engaged. And then outreach is a huge component, and working with the younger students, and actually even, I mean, working with the UAF graduate and engineering students it's a huge part of our grant, and we really enjoy it.
No, it is wonderfully exciting. And so, Alana, you were telling us that this is built to travel.
Right.
And this is built to do more things than version 1. Where can this type of project go in Alaska? And what can it demonstrate?
I mean, we were hoping to eventually get to villages that were harder to reach, that you couldn't necessarily move a whole fixed instrument to, right? You need something that can pack up, fit in your truck bed. I mean, one of the most attractive parts of this project is that this was going to be something that was used past our graduation point. You know, this is going to be something that lives in the state for years.
Right. Right. Well, it looks like you're well on your way with that. So what are, give me another example. What else can this show us? We've talked about the Kenai River watershed. What's the coolest thing that you've played in the sand with? What's your idea?
Well, I definitely enjoy the props, but we also like kind of building up a giant mound, and if you put some water behind it, you can make a little runway, I guess, and you know, demonstrate the effects of the hydrology by just putting up a dam and letting it all pour right down. And so that could, I think you mentioned it earlier, you could even demonstrate the effects of a tsunami.
Right.
Or something along those lines.
So it's not just topography, but it's also hydrology and coastal surge mapping and some of the coastal changes that we're seeing here in Alaska, and seeing what the smaller changes in the sandbox might do to kind of a real effect of a slosh or a push of water up on the coast. Tsunami inundation mapping, or even glacial dam release, as some has been demonstrated before. So wow, that's just an impressive thing. That it seems like the possibilities are nearly endless with this, and probably even more ideas that are popping up in your head too.
Yeah, as we speak.
Very cool. All right. Well, if folks want to get more information about AKwx, you guys are online. You're on Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube. AKwx, right? AKwx, Alaska AKwx, that is. And again, you guys are funded by the National Science Foundation, so more to come from that, and a longer-term study there. Thank you, ladies, for joining us today. Congratulations on your hard work there. This is really fun. And for now, I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with this edition of Alaska Weather Facts, and I'm going to go play in the sandbox there. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back. Well, the sea ice today not much different from what it was yesterday. Still in close here over the central and eastern Arctic coast, and then farther back here to the northwest. And with persistent east-northeasterly winds along the ice edge, that's going to result in minimal sea ice retreat northward of just 5 to 10 nautical miles through about Wednesday, and that would be pretty difficult to see here on a map of this scale. So not much change here for the next several days in the sea ice coming up. Over the southeast coast tomorrow, south winds here along the coast 20 as high as 25 knots for the north coast there, with seas up to 7 feet. Lighter winds on the south coast, southwesterly at 15. And over the inside waters, southeast winds there for Clarence Strait on the light side, picking up to about 20 knots up toward northern Lynn Canal, seas running 4 feet. And Monday's forecast, no change there for Lynn Canal. Not much change here over the central inside waters. Southeasterlies up to 20 knots though for Clarence Strait. And southerly winds 15 to 20 knots on the north coast, and south-southwest 20 knots there for the central and south coast there, with seas up to 9 feet. And for Prince William Sound tomorrow, easterly winds still in the forecast at 15 knots with 3-foot seas, and south to southwest winds for the North Gulf Coast at about 20 knots with 6-foot seas. More of a westerly direction here across the Barren Islands into Kamishak Bay, 15 to 20 knots. Small craft advisories for Kodiak Island for west to southwest winds, 25 knots with seas running 7 to 9 feet. Cook Inlet, southwest breeze, 10 to 15. And then for Monday, a lot of light variable wind conditions showing up here, 10 knots or less throughout Cook Inlet, variable direction for the North Gulf Coast as well, and Prince William Sound. So the wind's really laying down pretty good here for for Monday. Still a westerly breeze at about 15 from Kamishak Bay across the Barren Islands. And westerly winds at about 20 knots or so there on the east side of Kodiak Island. West-southwest at about 20 here for Shelikof Strait, with those seas at about 5 feet. And for Bristol Bay, westerly winds at 20 knots tomorrow. Otherwise, we got small craft advisories from Sitkinak all the way to Cape Sarachev, and on the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula as well. Westerlies 25, seas running 8 to 9 feet. And then for Monday, still have a small craft advisory here from Sitkinak to Castle Cape, and westerly winds everywhere else at about 20 knots with pretty uniform sea heights at about 6 feet. Excuse me. And for the central Aleutians tomorrow, northwest winds at 15 knots. For the eastern Aleutians, west-northwesterlies at about 20 knots, with seas roughly at about 7 feet. Southerlies at 15 for the western Aleutians. And then those go light and variable on Monday out there, but westerly winds 15 to 25 knots from the central Aleutians eastward across the Fox Islands, with seas running 5 to 7 feet. And for the southwest coast, northwesterlies 20 to 25 knots tomorrow, lighter up towards St. Lawrence Island. Westerly winds here across the Bering Sea at about 20 knots with 6-foot seas. And for Monday, westerly winds everywhere, pretty uniform on the wind pattern here, a little bit brisker down across the Pribilofs and south of Nunivak Island, where they'll be roughly at about 20 knots with 6-foot seas. Otherwise, 4 to 6-foot seas here over the northern Bering Sea and St. Lawrence Island. For the eastern Arctic coast, kind of light variable wind conditions going on there tomorrow, and the central coast northeasterlies, but still 20-knot winds here for the western Arctic coast all the way down to Cape Thompson. Cape Thompson down to Wales, northwesterlies at 15. And then those become northerly at 20 knots for Monday, northeast 20 knots from Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort. And actually that extends up to the northeast, but then light northerlies there along the central and eastern Arctic coast, becoming light and variable to nearly dead calm there on the east side. And for tonight, rain spreading in across south central Alaska, or actually showers changing over to rain here for the south central Alaska area, eventually spreading into Prince William Sound. Along the North Gulf Coast, wet conditions back across the western Alaska Range and Kuskokwim Valley, showers following in behind. And still a threat of showers over the northern panhandle, but tomorrow that'll become a chance of rain over the northern southeast coast, dry to the south. Rain changes to showers over south central Alaska. Chance of thunderstorms again over the eastern interior and from 40-mile country up to the southeastern upper Yukon Valley. Drying out here back to the west with scattered showers over Bristol Bay. And then partly sunny in the west, scattered showers here over south central Alaska. Rain changes to showers over the panhandle. Well, that's a look at the...
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.